All right, I'll call the meeting of Subcommittee F to order. Since we're virtual, I'll take attendance even though I can see you all. Miss Keating,
Here.
Miss O'Connor,
Here.
Mr. Ramey,
Here.
Miss Tompkins. You're muted, but I see you. And I
Here.
and I am also here. First thing on the agenda is public comment. We have no public here at the moment to speak of, so we'll move on from public comment. And just for the record, we're talking about the school budget, which is 300 for the Plymouth Public Schools, 390 for Medicaid reimbursement, and 391 for out-of-district transportation. And those are the three votes that we'll be taking tonight on those three budget areas. I'll turn it over to Adam and Chris if you guys want to do a quick overview, and then anyone who has questions can ask them, and then we'll take the votes.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks for having us. Chris Campbell, Superintendent of Schools. Brian, would you like me to go through the slide deck quickly, just in case people in the public would like to see it, or
Yeah, if you want to just fire through it real quick. I mean,
yeah, it's fine.
we've seen it a
We
few
won't
times.
go in the we won't go into the great detail. Just to kind of give the visual. I know we have a slide in there in terms of how we got to the number that we're at and how we got creative with some of our revolving accounts and split funding and all that. So
Yeah,
let
I think if
me
anyone watches it back, that'll be helpful, and anyone from town meeting that might want to look at
I
this
don't know if I
meeting.
can, I don't know if it will allow me to share my
Oh,
screen.
hold on. Let me see if I have. It should let you. Let me see if there's a. Yeah, it says you should have it. Is that not showing up?
Let's see. Um, you can't see my screen, right?
No.
No, I don't know why it's not doing that. Adam, is there any way that you have access to share your screen? If I don't know if you have your screen there.
I can try. Are we looking at, oh, here, I got the right one.
It's in the one that from our meeting today, the link.
Okay. Let's try this.
Oh, perfect.
Is it showing?
Yep.
Okay. No, I can't see it now. Hold on one
Oh,
second.
that's good.
Something funky going on with my computer.
Can you guys see it?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Chris, do you want me to talk through it briefly and add from there?
Yeah, I don't know why I can't see your screen right now. That is so strange.
Yeah,
Is your screen showing now?
Yes.
yeah.
All I see is you. Oh,
If
yeah, I
you
see it now.
can
All
you
right.
okay,
Sorry,
perfect.
I can see it now. I
We're in
totally
business.
My apologies. We've only been using Zoom for 6 years now. So again, thank you. Really, we appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and kind of crafting this budget. We really, first it was done, along with the town guidelines, and we'll talk about that. But this first slide that Adam is showing is really a breakdown of all educational costs. Um, the parts in blue on your screen there on that are really the costs of running education expenses that don't sit within the school department budget. So medical and dental, some of the benefits, debt services, a lot of things that go into education but aren't in our annual operational budget. So when you look at the table, the components that are highlighted in white in that table, those are the annual expenses that we seek on an annual basis that ultimately go to town meeting to run our school system on an annual basis. So, but when you look at the true costs of education, and this again, this is public, this is charter, This is all the debt services and everything for the town. It's, it's over $192 million, but if we can go to the next slide, Adam.
Can
So,
I pause here for just 1 second, if you don't mind?
sure, of course.
Just because two of the other votes that you take tonight, one is in regards to out-of-district transportation for $69,000. That is the transportation that we have our own bus driver that drives our students and several other students from other districts to Bristol Aggie. So that's the cost for that. And we do have some students that are going to Norfolk Aggie, and we're responsible
Al,
for.
I just left the select board meeting to tune into the Advisory Finance Subcommittee F meeting, which involves the school committee. Looks pretty boring.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
Hi.
And then the other two lines here are Medicaid salaries and contracted services. That is the money that we use from the money that's brought into the town. The town, we typically bring in somewhere between $600,000 and $900,000 annually. And this is the amount of money that we use from that. The rest of it stays with the town.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Adam. for that.
sorry, Chris.
No, thank you. So, on an annual basis, this is my 18th year in Plymouth, my sixth as superintendent, and this is the process that we've followed this process every year since I've been here. So we meet with the town manager, we meet with the finance director, Adam and I, school committee members, select board members, and we ultimately get to we look at the available revenues, the debt services, fixed costs, and we determine how much money is available for our operational budget. So our guideline when we built this budget, again, this goes back to, I believe, November or late October when we got the guideline, was to build a budget accounting for about $4.3 million an increase. So our budget that you'll see tonight represents that $4,375,498 increase to our current operational budget. And we'll talk about how we got into building that budget in the next couple of slides. But typically, at least the last decade, it's been about a 39-61 split town and school allocation. So we just show you that for illustration of how we got to that number and that guideline when we built that budget. So if you want to go to the next slide, Adam. So we've always tried to, these are things that are really important to us. I think our students come first. Anytime we've tried to build a budget, we're looking at student needs. We've had to make reductions in certainly in the last 6 years because of, declining in revenues and just the state of the state. And the nation really, and we've really put our students first at any decisions. We've had to make some reductions, but we've always did it in a way to maintain our, appropriate class sizes, our programs to maintain the wonderful opportunities that we have for our kids. Try to be very transparent and collaborative through that process. And really try to look at equity when we're allocating our resources. Are we doing it equitably across our district, across our programs? Across our schools. So we really, we've approached it in that manner. So you want to go to the next slide, Adam. So, how did we get to that target? We, for the last 6 years, have tried to start with the level service budget and then make a determination. We did the same thing this year. So level service is basically what does it take to operate the same level of service next year as we're currently operating. And when we did that exercise, we were coming up about a 1.7 million over the budget that is presented to you this evening and the budget that the school committee ultimately voted in favor of on January 5th. So how did we get to that target? First, there were no new initiatives in this budget. We haven't had a new initiative since full day kindergarten, which was initiated, I believe, in those students are freshmen now. So that was the last time we had a significant initiative in the district. We analyzed with such scrutiny our prior spending and reduced individual lines across all cost centers. We use revolving funds, bus fees, split fund positions, and Adam will show you that in a moment in the next slide to kind of give you an idea. In terms of curriculum purchases, our supply lines have been cut and cut and cut. Our curriculum has to be current, and we had contracts. We actually renegotiated some of those contracts with some of our vendors to get the cost down for next year in order to get to this number. So a lot of work went into getting at this number. We level funded general supplies and administrative supplies for our schools. We did some reductions in non-staff areas, and we looked at all projected and known retirements, took a chance with that, and made some reductions in our personnel line too, so to get to the number that we have. So Adam, I'll let you, if you want to do the next one to get into the specifics.
Sure. So these are some of the items that we reduced to get to that $1.7 million we were over. One is using bus fee revolving to offset. Normally, we bring in about $300,000 right now for bus fees. It is nowhere near our bus contract. Our bus contract is about six million, and then we typically have about a $300,000 fuel adjustment clause that we have to pay annually. So it's nowhere. The bus fees don't even come close. But over the past couple years, we haven't had to use some of that bus fee revolving because we've had some end of year funds. So we've kind of helped that revolving fee rise and increase. So next year we're looking at using about $600,000 total to make our budget work for the bus to use for bus fees. There's a little bit left in there, but not a ton. So we couldn't do that again for the next fiscal year. So our insurance deductibles have gone up to about $100,000 for each event. When we're talking about a building, we had an issue over the summer at South Middle School. This deductible was $50,000 a year ago. Now it's $100,000. So we had two in there. We had $200,000 deductibles in there because something happens every year. So we actually only have one deductible in the budget now. So if we have more than one event, we got to find it from somewhere else. Facilities took a 3% cut. The general supplies, we took about $64,000 to level fund those basically. We work with a consultant in regards to electricity. And so they go through our bills annually, they look at the market, they determine, okay, this is what you should expect to pay after your solar credits. And he figured at that point in time, we were a little bit higher than we needed to be. So we took out about 59,000. Since that discussion and since that presentation, the initial presentation of the budget, we have about $110,000 increase. So we have to figure out where we're going to get $110,000 for next year because the utilities have changed their rates. So that's not going to help. We went like Chris said, we went through our budget and we analyzed line by line, and anything where there was extra, where there was there, we tried our best to make sure we took it out. So there was an extra part-time position at West Elementary, and there was a teacher stipend that was in there. That was $18,000. The next four items were actually curriculum materials that we're going to use money from this year to purchase. Some of the $1.5 million that was allocated at town meeting back in the fall, we're going to buy those this year and rewrite some of our contracts. We took a gamble with retirements based upon what we knew of about $428,000. So we took that out of the budget. Right now we're about $350,000 with the retirements that we have. So we're still a little short, but we still have quite a few months to go. So we're hoping we'll hit that number. And then we had high school security guards that we used after school. We were up to rebid the contract for our crossing guards and security guards, and we didn't fill that part of the bid. So that brought us to the $1.7 million. As Dr. Campbell said, we've tried to be creative in some of our position and how we use revolving. So one of the things, like I said, we used bus fee revolving. Last year, we started split funding our custodians with our cafeteria because that's an allowable expense as long as we get permission from the Department of Ed. It's about $300,000 right now. Actually, it's about $350,000. We're not going to be able to maintain that for many more years because if we continue to do that, we'll decrease our cafeteria revolving fund at a rate that we need to make sure we pay the cafeteria and the food and so forth. So that's something we're going to have to look at in the next couple of years. We're okay for FY27, but going forward, we'll have to take a peek at that. Another thing that we did is we revolve, and again, this is just kind of creative ways that we tried to keep money in the budget. We reallocated a bunch of salaries from grants to the budget, because when you do that, we gained about $100,000 in our grants. Because what happens is when you pay salaries out of a federal grant, you also have to pay mass teacher retirement out of that grant as well, because it's coming from the federal government. But if you use local budget money or you use a state grant, you don't need to pay that money for retirements. So we're going to make that transfer for next year. So we can pay a few more things out of the grants than we typically have been able to in the past.
Don't worry, the governor's gonna let you write off all your utilities until April, and then you get to pay interest on them. It's gonna be great.
I know.
So our proposed FY27 budget, which was ultimately voted in favor by the school committee on January 5th for FY27 is $133,119,875. As you can see from this illustration, nearly 80%, 78% is salary. So we're a business of educators and specialists and other related service providers and custodians and whatnot. 22% of our budget is non-salaries. This is, largely contracted services. And when we talk about contracted services, these are large contracts for transportation, both general ed and special education. These are contracts with special education placements for students that have unique needs that we cannot meet within the district. We keep in mind we have approximately 280 students that are in our own district programs. We have a very comprehensive pre-K to 12 and actually post-secondary special education programs in our district to meet a lot of diverse needs. But there are students that we just can't meet their needs. They have very complex medical needs that require significant services that are just unique to them. So we have, approximately 90 or so students that are receiving services in private approved programs through the Department of Ed. And that accounts for a lot of our contracted services and other contracts as well. If we go to the next slide, you can see this kind of breaks down a little bit more granularly. So of that 78% of salaries, 63% of them, I believe, are certificated. So anyone with the license, administrator, teacher, specialist, clerical salaries account for about 3.7 million. Other salaries over 16 million, close to 17. Contracted services about 19% of our budget. Supplies and materials is under 3 million. This number has been over 3 million, I want to say about a decade ago. So just to kind of put it in perspective, that line has gone down. So we've gotten very, very creative and very frugal with our resources too. And other expenses is less than 1%. The next table, I think, is very telling to really kind of get a sense of what it took for us to get to this line. So if you look at the bottom, our total budget in comparison to this fiscal year for next year in the proposed budget is a 3.4% increase. The top section is all our salary dollars. So you can see total salary dollars are going up 4.14%. We have a 3 across the board for our staff. You'll see a 3% cost of living adjustment in this fiscal year for FY27. There are also lane changes for degree status. So this is very lean. Anything that is non-salary has gone up 0.84%, so less than 1%. So you may say, how did you get there? That's a decrease. Ultimately that's a decrease to get contracted services up to just over 1%, knowing that our bus contract is nearly 3% higher than it is this year. Our special ed placements are 4 plus at least, and so forth. We had to do reductions to get to that number. So I think this table is really telling in terms of how lean this budget is. It is as lean as we can get without reducing staff, and I kind of try to get into that at our meeting on the 13th. So this one just shows our per pupil. I know been asked a lot about our per pupil expenditures. They're always a year behind or a year and a half. So the last time the Department of Ed publicized these as FY24. So we've put FY23 and 24 here if you look at. So this is sort of how our per pupil is broken up from administrative costs, instructional leadership, teacher services, et cetera, et cetera. You can see in FY23, we were just above the state. In FY24, we started dropping below the state. As you all know, our insurance and pupil services, which includes transportation, those are the lines that really drive our costs in comparison to other districts. So, if those were more aligned with state averages, our per pupil would be significantly lower than the state average. But we're right around state average, just a little bit below that. So just, I guess we'll finish with, a couple more things. As we move forward, our concerns is our transportation contract. So, we went out to bid recently, as you may know. We've got one more extension opportunity, but sorry about my dog barking upstairs. If you can hear him, it's driving me crazy. We went out to bid a year early just to see what our options were. Transportation is a very expensive, undertaking, an important undertaking. So we wanted to look at what our options were there. So we continue to have conversations about that, and we're still in that process. Expanding the needs for early education. I think I've said this before. Our referrals for preschool interventions have risen 41% in the last 5 years. The state overall has seen a 6% increase since COVID. We've seen a 41% increase. So, the next year we will actually be expanding classrooms over to South Middle School as the needs, continue to get greater and greater. So we've seen an increase in students with, the requirement of special ed services by the time they turn 3. Our facilities, our buildings are old. I think, we're very appreciative of the capital that we get, and we always prioritize the building envelope so that we don't have any issues with that. One thing that I talked about before, uncertainty of, state and federal funding. The state, the governor's budget, it looks, promising, hopefully, for us, but that we're very, uncertain about where federal funds will go with the Department of Education and so forth. And then we will begin contract negotiations again next year, as next year is the end of our contracts. I don't know. I think that's really that's it, and we're happy to answer any questions or to go over anything else that we may have overlooked.
Robert, I just a quick question about the bus contract, which I know, like, obviously, I think we have probably one of the best deals in the state right now
We do.
with our current bus contract and how long ago it was done, and the fact that we did it before we saw like 20% inflation over the last 3 years or whatever it's been. Do we have like any idea what percentage increase we're looking at, like possibly with any of these people that you've talked to, or is it just
Yeah, Adam, do you want to talk about where we are in that process? Because we just had the bids come.
Sure. So we just opened the bids actually right before Christmas. So at that point, we've been working with an outside consultant to help us through the bid process and so forth. And his initial recommendation when we opened the bids was that it would make sense financially for the town of Plymouth to take over bus transportation.
like with
And we
our own buses that we own and operate?
Yes. To be honest with you, like I said last night when I was asked, it's not something I necessarily want to undertake. Because when you undertake, you have some very successful ones, like Worcester's done really great. Brockton was a complete failure. And they've gone back out to bid for a contractor to come back in. When you do something like that, you basically, like Brian said, you then end up owning your own buses, which means you have to maintain them, you have to insure them. You then have to hire all of your own bus drivers. You have to keep all of your own maintenance. That means you're also responsible for all the HR that goes along with your own drivers. And when they leave you, you are responsible for pension and you are responsible for health insurance until whenever. So those are some other costs that aren't necessarily brought into the initial cost. So on a day-by-day basis, yes, it might be cheaper. So what we did is we asked the lowest bidder to negotiate down, because by 30B you can negotiate down with the lowest bidder. So we are currently in that process right now of trying to negotiate down to try and see if it makes sense that we could move forward with this lowest bidder. Over the life of the 5-year contract, we're probably looking at about 42% increase,
Yeah.
is the number that we're looking at. And that's not outside the realm of what other districts have seen, and actually it's right in the middle. It's been up to 52%, but over 5 years we're looking at about 42% increase.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
not, I
what we
mean, not surprising to me. It's just like trying to wrap my head around what that number would be since I know we've been in such a good position with that contract for the last few years and we've all been watching this the close come down and watching us go to the end of that contract. So I know that's
Mhm.
going to be brutal for next year's budget.
Yeah. So we do have one more option year left. So we could decide we could deny all bids and take the option year and then go out to bid again, but you don't know what you're going to get. Um, and so we could take it as well once we renegotiate a little bit. One of the things that we do want to try and do is we would really like to look at special ed transportation and kind of take some of that. Because once we get a vehicle, we can operate a vehicle for about $225 a day. Whereas right now with our contracted company, we're paying about $360 per day. And if we have to go out to a private vendor, we could be looking somewhere in the vicinity of this is worst case scenario, somewhere between $600 and $900 a day for some vans. So once we obtain the vehicle, we can do it pretty for not that much money, so we could save quite a bit of money that way. But
It's a much more manageable and an undertaking that you can approach in a very um, thoughtful and sequential way, where buses, it's like you're doing it all at once or you're not doing it at all. Another thing with the special ed transportation, I mentioned earlier that we have just over 90 students that are receiving education in private placements outside of Plymouth. There are a lot of communities along Route 3 that are sending students to the same schools. And if we had our own transportation, we could also have them contract with us, which would then further, curb those costs for us. So that 200 some odd dollar van ride could be covered by other communities as well.
That's a great idea. Molly?
I just had two questions, and one, I believe you guys touched on this last year, so forgive me for asking the same question 2 years in a row, but can you refresh my memory on why our community is seeing like such a drastic spike in the early education needs in comparison to the state average in the growth? I I'm just forget. I think we touched on this last year, and I
Yeah, it's hard to really say why. I know that we've just seen, so it's not a 41% increase in the number of students that we have.
yeah.
Um, but it's the number of referrals for special education services. So
Okay.
that number can, seem a little bit more dramatic than it is, but it is an increase. I mean, I don't know why our community I don't know if we just have more families that are moving here. And
Sure.
we are. I know that for a fact because this year alone, we've had several moves in with some significant, children with significant needs. We're just experiencing a lot of kiddos that have, complex health issues, nursing care issues,
Hmm.
mobility issues, vision issues. It's real. I mean, I've been here a long time, and the population of students that we're servicing in our preschools has grown considerably.
Hmm.
It is also just more complex and requires a level of specialty and specialists that we just didn't have several years ago. So it's hard.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have a real good answer on why that number is so significant in comparison to that state average.
Okay. Maybe just the nature of the size and the diversity of the town
Yes, it could
as
be very
well.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my other question is uh, I'm wondering if the slide is in that deck that we just didn't get to. Last year we saw comparisons to the price per student. I think it was the annual cost per student compared to other communities. So I think like it wasn't sort of all South Shore. I think Chelmsford was in there. I remember. I was just curious if you did the same slide
We
this
did
year.
not do that for this year, but we certainly could send you one. So I did it on districts of comparable wealth. So
Okay, that would
looking
be
at,
interesting.
yeah, so looking at like the wealth, the relative wealth of a community,
Yeah,
because that's really as comparable as we can get. We look at demographics sometimes too to look at the expenses. So I can certainly send something to you all.
yeah.
We didn't do it for this presentation though.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was amount, maybe it was amount spent per student annually. Is that what
Yes,
it
it was
would, the
probably
metric
that.
would have been?
So
Yeah.
that one slide that I we just showed you briefly about that per pupil expenditure,
Yes. Yeah.
and how it's broken down in comparison to comparable districts to show that. And I do remember doing that when we were going over, our contract year, especially to show
Yeah.
we were under, our teachers were, weren't represented in our per pupil in
Yeah.
comparison to some of those communities. But
Yeah.
I can send you that.
We could also maybe rebrand that as amount invested per student. I would love
Yes.
that.
I
Um,
100% agree. It is. It's an investment. It's an investment in our students and in our community.
in our town.
It
Yeah,
is. It is. I agree with
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a comment here. I'm very much of the mindset that that should be a point of pride, how much we're investing in our students. So that's all I had.
Thank you. And I think, I always say this, we're um, responsive to the needs of our students, but responsible, trying to be responsible to the taxpayers at the same time. So
Sure,
when we're asking for something, it's because we feel that we need it and the students deserve it. And
sure.
I've been here for 18 years, and when I first came here, we didn't have languages in the middle schools. We weren't offering the biomed programs. We students that took music lessons had to pay for them after school. There was a lot of things that just didn't exist. And we're proud of what we have, and we're so
Mhm.
appreciative to this community for supporting that budget. But I think we're at a place now that we have a program that we should be proud of, and that the families and the kids deserve in this community. So I appreciate that. It is an investment. It's an
Yep,
investment in our kids.
absolutely.
I'm
Chris,
mortified
do
that
you
you've
happen to
been here
remember a
18
few of
years and you
those?
started after me. After I graduated, I mean.
Chris, do you remember a couple of those towns off the top of your head?
Hmm.
If you don't, that's okay, because I can call it up real quick. Because
I want to say I want to say I know that like I want to say Chelmsford was on there because I remember
If
saying
you
Chelmsford and Braintree maybe is in there.
Braintree probably was, yeah, Braintree.
Yeah,
I'm sure Braintree was.
yeah.
I, I know that if you can go on the DART analysis.
that's what I'm on.
Yeah, the DART analysis, a district allocated resource tool that the state has. So anybody can go on and you can click on there and search for your community and then other comparable communities. And go, Adam's pulling up. Um, yep, there's Chelmsford. So this is, what year are we looking at here? 24. Yeah, so that's the
24
most
is the
recent one
latest.
that's
Yeah.
up.
And you can pick any towns when you do this. It gives you a lot of information. So you can add surrounding towns if you wanted to. You
Yeah.
can it's,
Well,
it's really easy to do, but we can
yeah.
create one too. But I just wanted to show you can.
Well, I don't want to create more work. I just if that was already in there. But this is interesting to look at too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No
I wish
problem.
I had access to that. It looks pretty cool.
You
Yeah.
You
do.
actually do.
You do.
Oh,
This is a public
Oh.
facing. We'll send the link. I think it's all the data is out there. You can search by district comparisons in terms of where the money's going, both educational dollars, non-educational dollars. It's called Radar, so it's the resource allocation, district allocation action reports. there are hyperlinks in my prior presentations, but like I said, I didn't do it for this year. But it is a good tool, and it helps us to kind of look at where we are in comparison to other communities as well.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Miles?
Yeah. Um, I have a lot of questions. I don't know if I should ask them all because they're kind of all over the place. But the first one was going back to the bus um contract thing, specifically if we were to explore having our own buses.
Yeah.
With providing like pensions and health insurance to everybody, I know like my uncle was a part-time bus driver for the town of Norwood, and it was like his retirement job, and he did it for one to get him out of the house, and like two, a little extra spending money. And I never really talked to him about it, but I don't think he was like eligible to get a pension from being a bus driver. And I think he was just kind of like a part-time uninsured employee. So do we have to write contracts for bus drivers if we were to have our own buses
We
that
would.
they would?
Yeah. Anyone that works over, we have a contract with our bus drivers that sets the rate of pay and so forth and some of the benefits that they receive. Anyone that works over 20 hours a week, we have to provide them the opportunity for benefits. We do have a couple people who do work less than that, who kind of fill in here and there. We don't have benefits for them because they're under 20 hours a week, or they might work over 20 hours one week, but most weeks they're only kind of filling in here and there. But if they are working over 20 hours a week on a regular basis, we need to offer them benefits and get them signed up in the pensions and so forth.
Okay. And then another question I had, unrelated. Um, the district-wide undistributed line item. Could you just kind of explain where that I'm assuming it's unspent money that kind of gets returned from the previous year. Is that accurate? Or like, because it looks like it's 1,166,656, and it was like a reduction of 25% from the previous year, but it looks like it's less. So I just don't. What does that mean?
Do you know what page, what are you looking at? Just, are you looking at the other expenses? The one that's
It's
50,000?
line 350. Yeah, line 350. And it's just on like the main budget page. Sorry, it's blurry.
Like the second page, it says
Yeah.
Plymouth School Department operating budget cost center summary. I think that's what you're on, right? Yeah.
Yes. It's also on the vertical page too. It just doesn't have the $1 million amount, but that was the reduction.
Oh, the undistributed, it says 350. Okay.
Oh, your cost center, Adam, right?
Yep, that's my cost center. So, cost center 350. It's basically $3.4 million is what's looking at for that, but for that. That holds a lot of different items in it. It holds our copy machines. And let me actually go to the detailed budget. If you have the detailed budget report,
Yeah, I have.
it's cost center 350. Let me just get to that. And then it actually goes through it. Of course, my computer doesn't want to copy, but it's got our copy machines in there. It holds a lot of the funds for when we're looking at column changes. When you look at the historicals of the contractual column changes over the past couple of years, it used to be that it was about $400,000, and we held $400,000 in in our budget for years and years and years. That's no longer the case. We're looking right now at probably about $700,000 for contractual column changes. So it holds those numbers. I'm just going to it. Sorry, for some
If
reason
your
my
substitutes are there, Adam.
substitutes are there. That's about $2.1 million per year. That's where we have our audits there, like all of our costs for our audits, all of the different sick leaves, annual sick leave incentives for our custodians. When people retire, we have to do buyouts as well for vacation time or sick time. And I think a lot of contractual related costs are in cost center 350.
Okay.
And then you'll see some of those like substitutes, for example, they get redistributed at the end so that we like to, so if it's an elementary substitute or a secondary substitute, it gets distributed after the fact.
And then one other question I had, just kind of for my own curiosity, what's the difference between like clerical salaries and other salaries? Because I know like certified salaries, they're all certified educators, but the breakout for the rest of the employees, I was just kind of curious.
Yeah. So when you look at clerical salaries, those are all of our administrative assistants and so forth. Our certificated salaries, like Dr. Campbell had said a little while ago, was in regards to anyone with a license. When you look at other salaries, you're looking at your custodians, you're looking at your paraprofessionals, for the most part. We then have we have cafeteria workers, but those aren't held in this budget. Those are held in the cafeteria account. So that's kind of the other salaries are mainly custodians, bus drivers, and para educators.
And then, so just kind of like going off of that, and I'm not suggesting that there's double listings here, but I was a little curious, like why there were like clerical and other salaries for each individual school, but then department wide, like where do the department wide clerical and other employees work? Are they like in town hall or are they at 11 Lincoln Street?
Most of them would be at 11 Lincoln Street for the most part. And the other ones, the other clerical are in the school buildings. So if there's someone working in the specific building, a school building, we have to report them in that particular school building.
Right.
And if there's clerical in 11 Lincoln Street per se, we would report them not in one of the schools. We would report them most likely for the most part in cost center 355 for the most part. But then when you look at the breakdown in regards to the different cost centers, you'll notice that like 347 district-wide visual and performing arts, there's clerical salaries there. They're at 11 Lincoln Street as well because the department is based there. 348 student support services clerical, they're based at 11 Lincoln Street as well. So for the most part, if the clerical salary is listed at the school, it's 100% at the school. If they're listed in another department, that would be most likely at 11 Lincoln Street, they're really supporting the schools, but it's based at 11 Lincoln Street.
Okay. I was just trying to get my head around, where people were in relation to just not a spreadsheet,
Mhm. Mhm. And just to kind of add on to that, like you said, where people are, if someone has a split role, like they're in multiple locations, or if they're in a couple different, if they're in 11 Lincoln Street, but they serve two different departments, their salary is split between the two different departments. So it might look like there's, but if someone's making $50,000 and they're working for two departments, 25,000 will be listed in one department, $25,000 will be listed in another department. So sometimes if you look at just the numbers, it looks like there might be more people, but they may be split between departments.
Yeah, well, I am kind of glad you said that because I thought we were paying some people like $21,000, but um,
Hmm. Yep. It's just the way we have to report it. We report it to the Department of Ed that way, and we just keep track of where the person is, who the person is serving, what department they're serving.
and this next question is probably going to come off as distasteful because it's about pensions. Um, but it's going to lead into that. How long do teachers stay? Like, do a lot of them stay to retirement? Um, do you have a lot leave earlier or
We have no, I think we have, I don't know where we fit in the sort of years of service in our district to date, but I'd say we don't have a large turnover. I mean, 51 to 52% of our teachers live in the town of Plymouth. So given that, I think we have a lot that stay here and have a long, successful career in Plymouth. Um, but yeah, so I don't see, are you asking if if we have a lot of turnover in teachers and they're going,
not exactly? So the reason I was asking
yeah,
because if the answer was they don't stay here and retire, what I was in the Navy for a while, and what they ended up doing was creating a blended retirement system. So they actually reduced your pension. However, they increased price matching into what is essentially a 401k,
okay,
and it did save money. However, it also allowed you, if you didn't do your whole 20 years, to leave with
something.
something invested
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and not rely on, oh, do your 20 or get nothing.
Yeah,
Um,
so the teachers and anyone under a license for that matter is under the Mass Teachers Retirement System. So they have to be vested in for a minimum of so many years, and it starts off at a certain percentage, but it can take 30 plus years to get fully vested where they're reaping the full benefits of the Massachusetts retirement system. So it all depends on the number of years and your age, but you're looking at least 10 years to even qualify, regardless of your age. And then a certain age that you would have to be in order to receive a retirement. And then that number will increase as you put in more years and age, of course.
And the
all right.
town of Plymouth does not pay a dime into those teacher retirement systems for the
Yeah.
teachers. Where our liability is for pension is all the other staff, where the town would typically have the OPEB liability, and there's some pieces that go into that in regards to the pension fund that we have to do. Where the town of Plymouth would be responsible is if someone were to retire, it would be really in the benefits and the health insurance. So they would get the percentage of which where they started. So if they started as a staff member and the percentage split was 75-25, when that particular person, whoever it may be, and this is on the town side too, if they retire, the town would then pick up the 75%, and then the employee would pay the 25% for the benefits for the period of their life.
But from what I understand, a lot of town employees stick around for life. So probably not going to bring this up ever again.
I I would
All right.
I would love to add a comment and
Yeah.
say that I think in terms of um, recruitment and retention, I think part of the problem is things like you just said and ideas like you just said, and the fact that like our teachers have taken lower salaries for the last 25 plus years in order to keep the benefits that they have, which is one of the reasons that salary wise we're not competitive with districts that are surrounding us, except in the meantime, our benefits have gone down and the benefits that we offer have gotten worse in comparison to everywhere else. So previously, our benefits were like our selling point to get people to come here. It's like you'll make a little less, but you'll have better health insurance. You won't pay as much for health insurance. You get your pension, everything else. That's not the case anymore. And I think not only with the school district, but with the other departments in town, it's been something that is causing us to have a lot of turnover among especially experienced people who have, get 5 or 6 years in, and then they look at either another school district, another police department, another fire department, whatever it might be, and they jump ship on a parallel move to another district because of the situation with salary and benefits here. So I think like just my comment is that we should be careful before we make changes like that, since we're already experiencing difficulty retaining people.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I was just curious because it seems like a hot topic this cycle, and well, for the future, everything is just going to keep going up. But anyway, those were my questions.
Does anyone else have any questions? Emily?
Hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Just looking again at that school operating budget, the basically one pager with the percentage increase and change. Can you just help us understand cost center 356 district-wide curriculum development and professional development? Just give a brief overview about what that cost center is, and we have an increase of 28%. So if you could just speak to that.
So cost center 356, when you look at the detailed budget report, what that looks at is really a lot of the programs that we have that we're mandated to do in regards to professional development. So Plymouth is every school district is required to provide professional development for their staff, pretty much at no cost for the most part. So this area has a lot of professional development in this particular cost center. It also runs, when you look at some of it, Care Solace is a mental health support program that we've run for quite a few years. I don't even remember how long ago that, and we brought that into the budget several years ago because grants ended. This also covers a lot of the curriculum course reimbursements that are for the teachers by contract, not just teachers. It's teachers, custodians, paraprofessionals, and other staff. By contract, there are certain pieces in there, the contracts that provide course reimbursements for them. And so that's in here as well. Let me see what else is in here. But most of it is professional development that we're required to. The state doesn't necessarily say you have to provide this particular professional development, but it's just a plan that's been developed in the district over the past years.
Also part of our teacher contracts too, in terms of course reimbursement and monies that are available for that, as well as other contracts, as Adam mentioned. There are also, Open Architects Analytic Platform, which is a platform that we use for sort of accountability measures. And there's a lot of accountability measures that we have as a district. So as we're sort of analyzing that's a tool that we need to use. But as Adam said, a lot of it is curriculum development, professional development, and it is tied to a lot of to all the contracts, actually. They would sit in here.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. I wasn't unsure of, like, you were talking about, you renegotiated some curriculum contracts, but that's on the student side, not on the teacher, reimbursement side. So
yeah, most of those curriculum pieces that you would either see those if they'd either be split out amongst the different schools, or they would be in cost center 354, which is where the curriculum coordinators for our district, that's their cost center. So you'd see it, like I said, either 354 or through the schools. In some of the software programs they use in the district, you'd see those in cost center 352.
excellent. Thanks for that explanation.
No problem.
I've one more question if no one else has one. Emily, do you have any more? Um, and I had to log in I'm logged in twice because my audio on my laptop is absolute trash right now, and you all sound like robots. So I have to speak on my phone audio here. Um, but I just wanted to like looking towards like the next few years. I think like we can obviously see like where we're pulling from these revolving funds and how we're, and obviously I appreciate you guys getting creative with the spending and with like pulling money that we can right now while I think we wait for the executive side of this town to make decisions on what we're going to do long term and what that's going to look like. But I just kind of wanted to like looking at the next 2 years, like, do we think that this is something we can like continue to do and make it through the next few years, or are we going to be like in completely worse shape next year, especially given like our transportation costs that might kind of drastically increase, and just the fact that you guys have had to get so creative with pulling money out of different pockets, even just to get a quote unquote level service budget, which I think we've all, been striving for a level service budget, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job with it. But I think if we look at it, like we really are cutting things as we go, and it's probably not actually a level service budget. It's as close as we can get to a level service budget with the money that's available based on tax receipts. But I think in reality, it's not even a level service budget at this point. So not to end on doom and gloom with my questions here, but for the next few years, how do you guys see this playing out?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Concerns. I think we have serious concern. I think as I said, a couple weeks ago when we met, if we were to make reductions for this budget, we'd be laying people off. We would see increased class sizes. We would have to lose positions across the district, and it's very difficult to do after you built a budget. As you said, Brian, um, I appreciate you all recognizing that we like, really did our due diligence to get this figure and get as creative as we could, just like we did a couple years ago with the teacher contract, right? We knew that our teachers were not getting paid in comparison to our communities, surrounding communities. We knew that in order to bargain fairly, we needed to have, funds available, and we cut $2 million. But we did it at a time where we knew that positions may open up. We could reassign people. We could do it without laying people off, and we did that with 27 out of 29 positions, and we're able to successfully negotiate a fair contract. It wasn't extraordinary; it was a fair contract, though. But as you pointed out, and I tried to point out last year, like our teacher contracts over 15 years had averaged 1.7% cost of living adjustment, which is, not keeping up with inflation. So, getting back to your question though, yeah, I have concerns. Who knows? We may see increased retirements that could help with offset any costs. We were very fortunate 4 years ago when we had to cut about $1.5 million, that we had close to $1 million in retirement savings. So that helped us to get through that year. So without having a crystal ball in terms of, what comes with our workforce next year, it would be difficult, particularly with contracts, having to make a decision on contracted services and transportation. This is why we want to look at special education too, because I think we could actually, we can do just as good of a service for our families and kids, but, potentially save some money there. But yeah, we have some concerns, especially if the revenue is down in the town and, we're hitting that levy capacity.
Appreciate that. And then just a quick other follow-up is are the contracts up this summer? So are we gonna like be going to negotiations soon, or is that next summer?
Next school year is the last year of our contracts.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I guess I had one sort of along your lines that I wasn't gonna ask, but like, how long until you might have to close a school down? You know? Is that even
Uh,
something that in a
well,
couple of
that's
years?
we would have a problem. We wouldn't have enough space to educate the kids, and that would be um, that's the problem. So actually, we're uh, our population is about 7,000, and we've seen a reduction over the years, but we're busting at the seams at South Elementary. Indian Brook is up. We have over 650 kids at South Elementary School. So we have very little room. Um, I don't see how we could possibly close a school and still operate all of the classes that we would need, particularly with all the special education programs that we have in our district. So if you were to walk our buildings, I mean, I came 18 years ago when I came here, we had, over 8,000 kids and we're at 7,000 now. But what we didn't have 18 years ago was the pre-K to 12 programs that are in our district, providing services to students. And that investment in our kids is actually an investment in our bottom line as well, because we probably save cost avoid, I would say, nearly $10 million by educating those students in district as opposed to sending them to private placements. But getting back to your question, um, I don't see how we could close a school. We are looking at consolidation and hopefully building a new school in the future, but that's going to take some time. And we're in the early phases with MSBA.
Which I recognize the problem, but if you look at like your 2025 budget, it
Yeah.
looks like you've been taking some pretty significant cuts over the last, 5 years, not 5 years, 2 years. Um, oh, sorry.
No,
Yes, you did.
Did she have a question?
Congratulations. The whole town
I
knows.
remember those days. It's a big deal.
Big deal.
Thank you. But like my broader point being like, I don't know, it seems to me like you're taking all these cuts and eventually you're not going to be able to maintain your services.
Oh, what would happen? So it wouldn't be a closing of a school because I think that would be um, if we closed a school, our transportation budget would go up. There are other things that would go up because we'd be moving kids all over the town. What would happen is you would see schools with class sizes in the 30s at the elementary level, um, which we don't have now. That's what you would see. You would see much larger class sizes um, in your school. So if if you're in a kindergarten classroom that has 20 kids, you know, you're going to see a lot more. And that is something that, as I talked about our priorities, like the student experience being like first and foremost, um, educating, you know, 20 kids with diverse needs and trying to do what our staff are doing is an undertaking. So, that we'd have no place to go but to increase those class sizes. We would see programs being cut. The things that I talked about earlier that we didn't have, some of those programs. That's how we would have to approach that if we really, you know, were forced to kind of fit within a budget that we just couldn't meet. We wouldn't be able to close a school down necessarily, but you would see widespread reductions or increases in class sizes. You would see programs going away. AP classes that once were offered wouldn't be offered every year, which is detrimental to kids that are, seeking, college credits and, college attainment, all the things you don't want for your kids, and our students. Those are the things that we would have to look at.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
Are there any other questions, or if not, we could start with some motions on the three budget areas. Or discuss, then we can go into discussion after we make the motion. Someone want to make it?
I'll motion to approve the, what are we doing first?
The
The
Plymouth
school,
Public Schools.
oh, sorry. Yeah, the first budget that Plymouth Public Schools as is, no amendments.
I'll second that.
I think I'm just moved around. Sorry, this double thing is messing me up here. I would just like to, I mean, I said it earlier, but I just want to say thank you to you two, Chris and Adam, and everyone that works with you for like figuring this out this year. I think it's not obviously not just the school district that we're or the school department that we're like up against it with. You, we can all see that we're down to a, you know, whatever. I don't even know what the estimate is now. It was 300,000 the last time I saw anything in levy capacity, down from 10 million. You know, 3 or 4 years ago. So I think like we're all watching us race towards this. I don't want to say fiscal cliff because I think that's kind of nonsense. But like we're racing towards this space of not having any levy capacity, and then if we have, you know, some kind of an issue or we have a down year, there's a recession, something like that, then that really um, could negatively affect us. So I think, you know, as a committee and the finance committee, I think it's kind of our duty to look through a lot of this stuff. And I think, you know, we made some cuts last night to some of the capital items, and I think there's some other operating cuts that I think people have suggested in their subcommittee meetings. I really don't see anywhere that can be cut here, and I'm looking at you know, a department that's pulling money out of wherever they can right now to be able to provide the services that our students need, that our students deserve, and so that our teachers are, you know, working under acceptable conditions. Their working conditions are also our students' learning conditions. So I think, you know, I appreciate everything you guys done. I'm going to support this budget. I don't really think that there's anything that we can take out of it. Any other comment?
I'm just supporting your comments. You know, thank you guys. I know it's maybe feels a little thankless when you're going through these budget reviews and you know, I think if anything, that, you know, you should be bragging a bit about what you all do because I think we've got a pretty great school system and there's been so much improvement. And you know, I'm a little bit of a broken record when it comes to these meetings. When there's good stuff to be said, we should be saying it. And you know, when you're coming to these budget meetings, when someone hears budget, they think cut. And obviously, we're in a tough spot, and I think there's also a little bit of hysteria going on um, around the whole situation. Um, but I also encourage you guys to brag about what you do. I don't think you do enough. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We do have a great system. I agree with you.
Yeah, I just want to say, I know I asked some pretty heartless questions,
Not at all, please.
but just for some background, you know, I was born in Jordan Hospital in 1991, which has a different name now, but
Yeah.
and then I lived at the address that I'm sitting in now for 23 years. Then I went away in the Navy for about a decade, and then came back and tore it down and rebuilt it. And a large part of that was because of the school system. So, you know, and you heard the little guy, so he's gonna go through it too. And you know, I'm very excited for that. So, thanks for all the work that you do. And you know, I also don't really want to cut anything out of this. Just wanted to ask some questions.
Yeah, we appreciate it. No, your questions were all appreciated, and thanks for your service too. I appreciate your service as
Oh,
well.
No, that's a great point, Miles, because me and Brian are also from Plymouth and have gone through the Plymouth Public Schools. And I remain to, you know, be committed to this community that gave so much to me. So I think that's definitely important to note. Half this committee is, you know, from the Plymouth Public Schools.
2009.
You're 2 years before me, or 2 years
I was
after.
at your graduation. Yeah.
Missed my '07 one, I
Yeah.
think. Any
Really
more?
appreciate it.
Oops. If no one has any more comments, we can do the go to the vote on this. Ms. Keating,
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. So it's unanimous. And
Thank
then we
you.
have 390 Medicaid reimbursement.
Make a motion to approve it as is.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Perfect. Ms. Keating,
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. And then we have 391, the out-of-district transportation.
90 out of district transportation as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Ms. Keating,
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. Also, I forgot to write it down. Does someone want to remind me who motioned and seconded the school budget, the first one we voted on?
I motioned it.
I seconded. Molly.
Perfect. Excellent. Public comment. There is still no public other than Kevin Lynch, who stopped in for 10 seconds to tell us our meeting was boring. Um, so I think we can dispense with that, and then we can adjourn.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right, we're adjourned.
Appreciate it.